also help to organize this discussion. Hello to everybody who is in United States or in another country than Romania. Bună seara celor din România. Mă bucur să văd așa mulți participanți la o oră de seară în care probabil vă relaxați după o zi interesantă. Sper că această prezentare o să vă placă în multe feluri. Aș vrea acum să dau share, să vedem, am mers până acum, trebuie să meargă în continuare. Așa. Vă rog să confirmați că se vede primul slide al prezentării.
Yes, da? It's okay.
It's okay. Și acum al doilea, da? Deci am să trec... titlul prezentării este... the title of this presentation is, of course, intriguing. And at the end of the presentation, I would hope that you will have your answer, whatever that is. We may disagree, but we'll see. So I'm just going to dive in. As with many of my talks, I like to begin by presenting some concepts that are useful for us to have a discussion. Although I would really love to make this interactive during the presentation, it's going to be difficult because I don't see anything else but the full screen presentation. I don't see the chat, I don't see you raising hands and so on. So please hold on with your questions for the end of the talk. The talk is not that long, maybe 30 minutes. I only have 14 slides. But I hope it is going to be informative and entertaining too. The three concepts that I'm basing the case I'm going to make this evening are related to the human brain and the way we think, the way we understand the world, the way our brain operates. And we as humans go through life. And these are knowledge, intelligence, and creativity. To me, knowledge means having access to a collection of facts, of data, having information, having skills. A person is knowledgeable if it knows stuff, if you want, and if that person can do something useful, productive, correct. Knowledge is being tested in many ways, of course, in school, at universities, at work. But here is a fun way of testing knowledge. Jeopardy contest in the United States. For a long time, the gentleman on the left was the champion, and nobody could defeat him until one fateful day when the IBM Watson computer beat him severely, badly. Take a look. This was a question, I guess, related to Bram Stoker's novel about Dracula. So here's a connection to Romania too. Look at the scores. IBM Watson was deemed at the time to be the most knowledgeable entity on the planet. You could ask Watson anything, it could give the answers quickly, correctly. That was, however, 10 years ago, more than 10 years ago. The other concept that I'm introducing in the sense of explaining my understanding of this concept with intelligence. So to me, not only because we are having this discussion at the Department of Physics of University of Bucharest, but in general, because I'm a computational scientist and I like to think in terms of problems. Intelligence is the ability to quickly solve a problem that is new, that we humans or machines don't know much about it in advance. And I'm using a very simple example. Let's take a look. If you look at this series of numbers, the question would be, what's the next one in the series? So what we have 1, then 2, and then 3, 5. You can see a pattern emerging, 8, 13, What could be the next? This is not a test. Each of you has an answer, no doubt. If you know the answer, which is 21, because you are familiar with the Fibonacci number, series numbers, then that demonstrates knowledge. If you've never seen this problem, but were able quickly to figure out that the answer is 21, that demonstrates intelligence. We are all knowledgeable in some areas, and we are all intelligent. So don't worry if you didn't get the right answer. There is no doubt that you could ask everybody else in this conference a different question, and some of us, myself included, may not be able to find a solution quickly to demonstrate intelligence. The third concept is creativity. And creativity differs from intelligence in the sense that it doesn't require a quick answer. It just requires a new and original one, an answer that's different from what everybody else is proposing. And here's an example which has nothing to do with mathematics or science, but I like very much. I found a picture of a human brain. This is from an anatomy book. It does represent a human brain with all the details. And I asked myself, what an artist could propose as a representation of a human brain. And here's what I found. I thought this is a good representation, is a nice image. Everybody can agree it's a human brain, it's a painting or a drawing of a human brain. But I wouldn't call this original or creative. But how about this one? This picture made an impression on me. It's an artist rendition of the human brain with the connections and the tightness of connectivity and the complexity of the connectivity. It's unexpected. It didn't cross my mind that I could represent the brain this way. So that's creativity. Now, this is my fourth or fifth talk at the Department of Physics, Faculty of Physics, as I call it, University of Bucharest. And usually, in the last few years, I would start with a brief history of artificial intelligence. Not this time. Although those of you who attended my presentation last year and the year before that, and even during and before COVID, know that I really like to tell that story. It started in 1950 with a paper by Alan Turing in the Mind journal, where he asked the question, can machines think? It was a tremendous achievement. Turing also proposed a test, a Turing test, for checking, for verifying in machines can demonstrate intelligence, can engage in a conversation with people without people realizing that the person they're communicating with is a human, the entity is a human or a machine. But time went by and many good things happened in the artificial intelligence. There was a hiatus, the AI winter between 1960s and 70s and 80s, 20 years of the AI winter. But more recently, at the end of the last century, exceptional progress was made. Remember that AI was able to defeat humans in chess, in Go, that was able to generate personal assistants that are now in our smartphones. And recently, it resulted in a tremendous development in natural language processing. So as you see, I let you absorb this picture. The way I see artificial intelligence is as a complex system of various components. It's far more than ML, machine learning. In fact, I never use AI/ML because artificial intelligence to me includes not only machine learning algorithms that learn from examples and improve, as opposed to the traditional algorithms that operate based on instructions provided in an input file and then compile and execute those instructions. A subset of machine learning is deep learning. Deep learning is based on neural networks. The diagram shows some similarity with the way the human brain is organized. So the nodes in this diagram could be, let me get a pointer. The nodes could be similar to neurons, and these connections between the nodes, that are weighted connections, could be similar to the synapses. Of course, deep learning algorithms can be extremely complex. They have many hidden layers. They can have different structures with fewer input nodes, and depending on the problem. There is a classification that I went into 2 years ago, I believe. Machine learning algorithms can be classified into supervised, mostly regression, quite useful, kernel-rich regression, for example, for retrieving models that correlate physical properties to parameters such as temperature or pressure, density. Unsupervised machine learning algorithms that are, for example, used to cluster for classification, to group various objects, often unlabeled data that the algorithm doesn't know exactly what it is. And then reinforced learning, where the program operates in a way that maximizes the reward received either from a human or from a different program, as it is with GANs, G-A-N, generative adversarial networks, and so on. Computer vision is another component of artificial intelligence that I like very much. A year ago, I showed you some results that had to do with designing better materials for batteries, or looking at the fluid dynamics of flames, having artificial intelligence classify flames based on their stability, much like humans do. But I'm not gonna give today, this evening in Bucharest, a technical talk about any of these. Although machine learning and deep learning and computer vision and even robotics are at the core of my professional career, the results I published together with my team. But I'm looking at more of this component, natural language processing, because it came to everybody's attention and generated excitement, but also fear and concern in many areas. First of all, what is ChatGPT? So who better to ask than ChatGPT itself? So I opened ChatGPT. I thought it was a good idea to enter the prompt, what is ChatGPT? And here's the answer I got. It's a quite reasonable one. Look at this. Created by OpenAI, can generate human-like text. Is based on pre-trained language models. Very interestingly, it says that it works by predicting the next words in a given text based on patterns learned from a massive amount of data. For the physicists in the audience, you'll be happy to learn that this prediction involves maximization of entropy. So in other words, GPT as an engine and ChatGPT as a chatbot, tries to create the answer to a question by analyzing data from a massive amount of sources, from the internet, from databases. But the way it works, in essence, simplifying too much perhaps, is it starts with some words and then looks at the probability of some other words coming up, being next. And maybe this is how we as humans proceed Sometimes, not always, but sometimes. We start saying something and then words come into our mind. What's next, the continuation of the conversation, is somehow based on our life experience, what we read, what we learn, people we spoke with, movies we've seen. Because I can't have a presentation without a brief history of something, let's look at this concept, generative pre-trained transformers, GPT. It was introduced, I agree with those who share this opinion, in a journal article, in 2018 by Alec Radford and his colleagues at OpenAI, the company OpenAI. I went online, found the article, read it, and I'm going to share with you a paragraph. I'm going to read it. I have the article right here. I encourage everybody to download it and read it. This is an extraordinary article that shows progress in an area that seemed to be stuck at the time. So here's what they say. This is just a brief excerpt. It says that large gains in the area of natural language understanding can be realized by generative pre-training of a language model on a diverse corpus of unlabeled text, followed by discriminative fine-tuning on each specific task. This may not mean much to many of you, but what they say in essence is that they would like to pre-train the algorithm or data that is not related to the task at hand, and trust that this algorithm may perform even better than the ones that were specifically trained for a target application. And that's what they say. Our general task agnostic model outperforms trained models that use architecture specifically crafted to each task. And continue giving example, very interesting article, as I said. So this pre-training using unlabeled data that resulted in an algorithm that does better than a comparable one that was trained on a specific application, maybe on labeled data. This idea, I think, sparked the outstanding transformation that GPT as an engine and ChatGPT created in the AI world. Then more progress, look at the number of parameters. It started with millions. It went in a year to 1.5 billion parameters. And then 175 billion parameters, the number of parameters has increased tremendously. However, with ChatGPT in 2020, the models were not somehow created to observe, to get feedback from people, from the users. That changed in 2022, but not to perfection. You see, the number of parameters was not increased, but ChatGPT 3 used reinforcement learning from human preferences. There was some input from the users, from the humans, which led to a far better environment for communication. Still, it wasn't the breakthrough. The breakthrough came actually in November 2022, but on my diagram appears in 2023 for aesthetic purposes. This was the big change, in my opinion. Reinforcement learning from human feedback. The program, the set of programs, was not able to communicate with humans, to get feedback from them and adjust the text in the communication in response to what humans were provided. The number of parameters, in fact, went down because they tried some kind of a turbo system to optimize the algorithm. But shortly, with ChatGPT 4, it went up to trillions of parameters. The amount of data, the speed of processing is extraordinary. ChatGPT 4 is more performant, is better, performs better than ChatGPT 3. Has the ability of accepting as input figures, pictures. However, because it's for a fee, it's $20 in the United States per month or 20 euros in Europe, I would guess that the number of people who are using it is lower. In fact, in a discussion recently with Professor Krista, he told me that he thinks he likes ChatGPT 3.5 better than ChatGPT 4 because he feels, and I share that opinion, that it has a larger audience. It's somehow better trained, in a sense, by humans. Now, just to clarify, I'm not going to dwell on this, but just to clarify, to reinforce that GPT is the large language model, is the brain, the engine, while ChatGPT is the chatbot. So you are talking online with ChatGPT, which may be based on an engine like GPT-4 or GPT 3.5 or something else. And in fact, OpenAI is not the only company that went this route. There are several others. I encourage all of you, if you want to have fun, to look up the chatbot arena. Like the gladiators in the Roman times, AI, natural language processes, large scale models are invited to fight, to compete for the user's interest. And the way it works, you go there or go to the large model systems page, lmsiys.org, and participate in this competition. They allow you to select two software, two codes, two models, and compare their interactivity, their communication, their quality, if you want, and decide which one was better or not. So by doing that, with pairs of two, one can assign scores, can rank the software. So out of curiosity, which one do you think is the current leader among this nice group of codes? I'll let you think of it. Maybe you know them, maybe you don't. So the winner, the current leader, is ChatGPT 4. And I will say by far. But which one do you think is the second? Is in the second place, as of today, I mean. That might change. Now, to my surprise, in the second place, we have Claude by Anthropic. Claude version 1 outperformed Llama and Palm. I have to say that didn't hear about Claude before accessing this chatbot arena. I was intrigued by the way they spell Anthropic in the logo, but I didn't think much of it. It is, however, a quite powerful and interesting LLM. Now, I'm revisiting now briefly. Let me see how I'm doing on time. Okay, so the concept I propose to you. The first one, knowledge. Does this software, this class of programs, do they demonstrate knowledge? Remember IBM Watson, the most knowledgeable computer 10 years ago? Now IBM advanced this machine and added AI to it, and now there is an IBM Watson assistant. But in my evaluation, ChatGPT is now the most knowledgeable machine that we have. If you want to know something, you go to ChatGPT. It has access to information and can provide an answer at an amazing speed. So compared to Google, for example, or Wikipedia, the advantages are manifold. More information that is being accessed quicker and delivered in a way that's quite similar to the way people speak, to our language. You can choose the language, by the way. You can ask questions in English or Romanian or Spanish or Italian. There are some drawbacks. One of them is that it is not clear if they have the right to access the data. If you just grabbed from the internet with no concern for copyright and other aspects, it's hard to say where the data comes from, what's the quality, if that data was curated, to see if it's accurate, if there is any sense of security in accessing the data. And it occasionally hallucinates. Let me tell you a brief story. Last year, I was in Timișoara for the Tech Talk conference. Important people from technology companies and universities were invited to give talks. To my surprise and delight, I was invited too. I spoke about the impact of artificial intelligence on science and technology. But at the end, the most famous speaker of the conference was Jimmy Wales. Jimmy Wales is the founder of Wikipedia. And since Wikipedia suffered quite seriously after ChatGPT appeared, he told us a story about how ChatGPT hallucinates. And he said that he asked the code to tell him something. I have a note here about Kate Garvey. Kate Garvey is Jimmy Wales' wife. And he did. He did find accurately her date of birth, her name, some information about her professional career, her career and other aspects. It accurately determined that she was working at the British Parliament. But then the next question was, who is she married to? And ChatGPT returned some name, I don't know, Michael Johnson or whatever. And that worried tremendously Jimmy Wales, who said, okay, so my wife has another husband I didn't know about. And the next question was how many children they have. And there was 4 or 5, and actually they only have 3. And it continued on this path of wrong answers. Once it branched out and got into a wrong direction, it continued that way. So it is possible that ChatGPT returns information that is wrong, is actually really wrong. That doesn't happen often, but it may happen. So to me, and now if there are students in the audience, it is a good research tool as a first step. Then one has to go and verify and validate the data by accessing the reliable sources of information, the journal articles, the books, and so on. Now, regarding how does ChatGPT do in terms of intelligence and AI in general, I would say. Remember this brief quiz? So we have 1, 2, 3, 5, 8, 13, 21. What's the next number? And of course, many of you, all of you, know what this number is, but that doesn't demonstrate intelligence anymore because you are familiar with the problem. It's not a new problem. And even if you answer quickly, right, 34, that shows more knowledge at this point than intelligence. ChatGPT, in my opinion, in my evaluation, shows signs of intelligence. For example, it can solve puzzles rather quickly. And some of these puzzles are presumably new to it. It also can write code in Python or C++ and with very little training. I was surprised to see how the quality of the code that was presented. It wasn't perfect, We had to go over it and fix a few things here and there. But it is, to me, a sign of intelligence because it was delivered quickly, and it was definitely a problem that was not part of the training set, or the pre-training set in this case. I would claim that nobody, humans or machines, can demonstrate intelligence in isolation. The brain itself, or ChatGPT itself, they cannot show intelligence. Our brain is part of a human organism that has eyes and ears and can smell and has a sense for touch, for hot and cold. The same with ChatGPT. To demonstrate intelligence at a full scale should be part of a robot, for example, that can move around. Think of intelligence that athletes show in sports. It's more than their brain calculating the next move in basketball or soccer. It's their body figuring out how to move around. What is the best way of executing, I don't know, a shot or defending one if one is a goalie or things like that. Now, the reason that intelligence is not as high, at least in my evaluation, is because machine learning algorithms of all kinds rely on correlations rather than causation. We humans, physicists especially, we love to understand the relationship between cause and effect. In simple terms, maybe a simple analytical model or a simple brief description of a physical phenomenon. In machine learning, deep learning especially, the correlation between input and output, although so good, so successful in making predictions, is not related to causation. So I stated that in several occasions, machine learning is a return to empiricism. My hopes of having AI get closer to, for example, recovering the fundamental laws of physics, or going into areas that require a profound analysis of nature of the universe, are small. I don't think we are close to what is called explainable AI, where not only that AI makes outstanding predictions, but we also are able to understand how we did that. About creativity, the last of the three tenets of human thought, as I suggested to you. What do you think about this image on the lower right, this one? It was generated by AI. And I was ready to say, okay, so AI can be creative. Look at this beautiful image. This is different. This is new. I've never seen anything like that. But I'm not going to make that statement. And the reason is that I don't know what went into the training of this, obviously, machine learning algorithm. And if you look at other software like DALL-E that can convert text into images, you will see that there is the same false sense of creativity, that the result, although unexpected, is still directly related to the images that have been used for training. So I would say that not there, ChatGPT cannot make a strong case for creativity, although it brags about that. And the reason is that, as opposed to humans who went through many years of education, right, in the family, at home, school, high school, college, more for some, the AI, machine learning algorithms are trained still, compared to humans, in a limited way. And I proposed a couple of years ago that we should create schools to properly educate artificial intelligence the same way we educate humans. Two predictions that I hope will spike the discussion, our interactions. I think that in 10 years or so, AI will co-author journal articles, scientific articles, peer-reviewed in prestigious, in good journals. And second, that it will win literary awards. And I can give you more information about that. There are already some successes if you want during the discussion. So is ChatGPT creative? I Googled that. So I don't think it is yet, but let's see what other people think. So somebody said that creativity can be defined as the ability to think originally. Okay, not my definition, but still, I think along the same lines. And then, although ChatGPT can generate creative content, this is not an indicator of its creativity. I said, well, good. So finally, somebody agrees with me. And who is that entity? It's ChatGPT itself. 3 weeks ago, I was preparing for a presentation at Polytechnica University in Bucharest, and I went online for this and asked ChatGPT if it feels that it's creative. Quite a humble answer, I would say. I thought, man, ChatGPT is a modest, reasonable entity. Yesterday, while preparing this presentation, I asked ChatGPT the same question. So just 3 weeks apart, this was ChatGPT 4, and look at the answer. Yes, ChatGPT is creative, quite creative, generates poems, stories, code, essays. Here is a poem, roses are red, violets are blue. ChatGPT is here to create something new. Yeah, by the way, this is based on a short poem published 250 years ago by Edmund Spence. So not really original, not really creative, and not the highest quality in terms of poetry. But one can ask ChatGPT to develop poems in the style of, I don't know, Edgar Allan Poe or Mihai Eminescu for the Romanians. And you'll see the results. It's amusing sometimes. The last topic promised in the abstract is the impact of AI in general and of ChatGPT in particular on the professional landscape. How will this affect our jobs? So the book on the right is a book that I liked. It's 2017, so already 7 years old, but it struck me by its title, Will Robots Take Your Job? And the answer, yes, in some cases, no, in some others. Again, my evaluation. Jobs that do not require human-human interactions are at risk and, bluntly said, will disappear shortly. Clerks, taxi drivers, customer service representatives. I called Expedia to change the return on one of my flights, and by the time I got to a human, by the time I explained everything, it didn't work. And then I went and spoke, in quotation marks, with their app, with their AI assistant at Expedia. And in less than 5 minutes, I was able to change my return flight. Librarians, too. I remember back in Urziceni, I was born and raised and spent my childhood there. I would go to the library, and ask the lady who was there, do you know a book about this and that? And may I have some South American authors that write romantic reality or magical realism? And she would say, let me think about that. And let's go to this area of the library. There are some books here, and that is not necessary anymore. My wife Liliana and I, we live next to the Washington Library, the main library in Chicago, Harold Washington Library. I do not interact with librarians anymore. I go online from my computer, ask the same questions. What book of magical realism can you recommend? It tells me what book. I reserve it. I can even get it delivered, or I can go and pick it up. Now the bad news for the majority of the audience of our presentation. The higher your degree, the higher your exposures to AI taking over your job. I know this may be a shock to some, but I do think that lawyers, doctors, professors, scientists, they should reinvent themselves. Because already AI demonstrated that it's more knowledgeable than any of the professionals in this category. There were competitions. Who knows the law best? Who knows medicine best? Who knows chemistry or physics best? And in terms of knowledge, AI is surpassing humans right now. But knowledge is not everything. Knowing the law doesn't make a good lawyer, or understanding how to diagnose something or how to prescribe medication does not make a good doctor. A lawyer should make a case and impress upon the jury. A doctor should alleviate the pain, the physical and the psychological suffering of the patient. Professors should inspire their students. It's not that they know the physics and the quantum mechanics and the thermodynamics, it's that they inspire their students to research. Scientists, the same. They need creativity, they need intelligence. Journalists, I don't want to get here, my sister is a journalist and my brother-in-law, so it's a danger. Unless they embrace AI, these jobs will need to dramatically change to go to a transformation. Now, creators are doing better, although as a member of Screen Actors Guild, I know that there were tough negotiations to prevent producers, movie producers, to use AI instead of human actors, and even instead of screenwriters. And now in the contract, there are provisions that say the copyright will be observed, and in case a production company replaces a human actor with some CGI created by AI, then there will be some compensation to the humans. We'll say, sorry, we are not going to hire you, but here is, I don't know how much, what amount to, because we are going to use AI instead. But anyways, they are safer, I would say. And so are jobs that require human-human interactions, right? Firefighters, we cannot farm that out to AI, or even childcare, barbers. I don't want to go to get a haircut from a robot, even though it might be a very skillful one. So there are new jobs. I don't know if you see the something blocks part of the text, but the new jobs are in the area of ethics, policy development, and cybersecurity related to artificial intelligence. And these are really new jobs in the sense that if you are a philosophy professor with expertise in ethics, that doesn't make you a good fit for handling AI aspects of that. And the same with cybersecurity. So last slide before I hope we engage in a discussion. I'm writing a book, Human and Artificial Intelligence. And in one section, I'm comparing the two. Of course, as a human, I root for our brain. The fact that we can think critically, that we have intuition, that we have a sense of humor. Try and ask ChatGPT to tell you a good joke. If it's good, it's going to be most likely an old joke that it found somewhere in the internet. But then we should admit that our brains are rather slow compared to these machines, and that we need to rest, we need to sleep, we need to eat, we need to get out of a continuous working schedule pattern, which is not a problem for artificial intelligence. They have outstanding memory, can process large data sets and data streams far larger and far quicker than we can do. But then, as I said, although extremely knowledgeable, surpassing humans in that aspect, their intelligence is still up to debate, and creativity, in my opinion, still low. Some humans, some people are really afraid that AI can take over society, that can take over immediately some jobs, as I mentioned. And they are right to be concerned. But I'm an optimist. I think the development of AI can be regulated we can have policies in place that put some boundaries on what ChatGPT and what other algorithms in other components of artificial intelligence can do. And even more, I dare to suggest that AI should be involved in developing policies about AI, which is something I argued for in Washington, D.C. during a discussion, and everybody was puzzled. What do you mean we use AI to? I'm telling you, use AI to collect the information, to process, to get you a summary of what are the main elements of such a policy, and then let humans decide and create the final version of that. So, to me, artificial intelligence is not really dangerous. We should be concerned, we should be careful. But I think the danger resides with the people who use it, and especially the people who train the algorithms. It used to be some years ago that whoever wrote the code was responsible for the results. If there was an error in the result, it was the responsibility of whoever wrote the lines of code. Not anymore. I think that lies now with whoever trains the algorithm, what data they use, what their biases are. So my final thought is that AI augments our brain. It makes us smarter. It makes us more knowledgeable. Definitely, it helps with our intelligence. It might help with creativity, maybe in the years to come. So I encourage you to at least try it. Give it a shot. It's something worthwhile experiencing. So I'll stop here. I usually have a summary slide, but I won't this time. Whatever you want to talk about, whatever questions you have, I'll be happy to answer. And thank you all for sacrificing your lunchtime in Chicago or your evening, nice, serene evening today to participate in our discussion. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much, Mr. Stanford, for this wonderful usually presentation and points of view new for many of us. So I open the discussion. If there are colleagues, people which want to have questions, comments, observation, please just open the microphone and speak. No one? Yes.
Hi, can you hear me?
Yes, please.
My name is Julia Dima. I'm from Chicago, and I have a question. How do I, when I read the text, especially on social media, that's what I'm more interested in. How do I know it was written by ChatGPT or with ChatGPT?
Now, it depends how you interact with that software, with that entity. If you get the text from somebody, from a human, you have no way of knowing if that is originating in the person's thoughts and opinions and so on. If you access ChatGPT and ask ChatGPT a question, obviously it's going to be an answer for ChatGPT. So these are the two extremes. But there are things in the middle. For example, if you use Bing as a search engine and ask a question like you would Google in Chrome, for example, when using Bing, and more recently even with Google Chrome, you never know if it's just a simple information retrieval activity or if there is AI involved, something similar to ChatGPT in the answer. Sometimes those browsers will tell you, we invite you to resubmit your question and this time get assistance from AI. So, or they have a prompt that says AI can answer this for you. And then you know. Here's another example. I use Facebook a lot. There used to be a search on the upper right part. There was like a lens and you could search for things. Now, it's not a lens anymore. It's obviously an AI assistant that provides that information. So in this case, it may be ChatGPT or some other entity, Llama, for example, because that Facebook belongs to Meta. So again, you have options. Either you want to make sure it's a human, or you want to make sure it's AI, or just ask or interact, and then you'll always be in doubt.
I got it. Thank you very much. Can I ask you one more question?
Please.
So, for example, if I want to create my website, it doesn't affect me anyhow in the Google search if I use the text. I mean, if the text that I'm writing is with the ChatGPT help, right? So in the Google, oh my God,
Again,
I'm driving, I can't focus.
yeah. Again, it depends what browser you use, even with Google. So Google is a company that has browsers, and these browsers, like such as Chrome, and they offer AI assistants. There is a Copilot, for example, in Microsoft, Bing, and in others. So if you don't want to be impacted by AI, you should be careful what you use to ask that first.
Oh, I got it.
Maybe, yeah, okay.
Yes, I
On
understood.
your browser too, you can offer these on your. If you create your web page, you can offer the same two options. Do you want to search this website in a normal way? Do you want to get answers directly from me, Yulia Dima, or do you want to get answers that are moderated or processed by AI?
I understand. Okay. Thank you.
Thank you for these questions. Any other questions?
Yes, I have one.
Yes, please.
Actually, a couple. I'm a student from University of Bucharest, Faculty of Physics. I'm doing a master right now, and I have a question, actually, an argument about the last topic, because from what I know, there is a software that can distinguish the human language and the GPT language. It's about the words and the phrasing in the text. Am I
Yeah.
right?
Yes,
I
you are
mean,
right. There are, let's say, in quotation marks, fraud detection or codes that work both ways. Again, they can determine if whatever a human posts or communicates is original or is there plagiarism involved. And this created much pain, heartburn to the students who were writing their essays or their reports by gathering text from online. So there is if you want something that can determine if it was written, if it's original or not when submitted by a human. But there is also software, as you mentioned, that can distinguish in some instances, not in all instances, if a text was written by ChatGPT or something similar, or by a human. This is difficult because as much as you would think that the challenge resides in seeing if the text has some similarities with other texts created by ChatGPT, or it has some features that correspond to the way that algorithm, large language model, works. There are many difficulties when analyzing the speech or the text or the writings of humans. A human can write in a very reasonable way, and everybody would say, okay, this is definitely written by a human. But then you have humans who intentionally, for example, in poetry or in essays, alter their normal speaking. And then it's harder to say. And then there is, of course, the unintentional way when humans really have a poor grammar or they don't know how to phrase something. And it's again difficult to say if this was a human or a machine. But there is software. I agree with you. I don't have anything handy, but you can look it up.
okay.
Okay, you said that you have a couple of questions. This is all?
I have another, but I saw that Yulia wants to ask something again. I think it's about the same topic. I can continue later.
Okay. Thank
No,
you.
sorry, I kept my hand raised by
Okay,
mistake.
so you can continue with the
Okay.
question.
The second question, you spoke about if ChatGPT will take our jobs, even the high education jobs, let's say. I had a discussion about this a year ago with a friend of mine from who took a diploma in mathematics, and after a long discussion, we realized that it's most probable that ChatGPT or artificial intelligence will take our jobs. So he shifted from mathematics to computer science because he thought that even researchers will be changed with artificial intelligence or other programs. But I don't know if this artificial intelligence could take a professor's job. This is something that I'm not really sure.
And why do you think that is? Why do you think that is? Why do you think that a professor's job at the university is not in danger of losing the job to an AI?
In short term. In long term, maybe. I mean, 20, 30 years. My assumption. But in short term, I don't see how this can happen. Because between a professor and a student, there is a relationship, let's say. It's a different kind of interaction than with a robot, software.
I agree. It goes well with my statement that a professor should inspire students, which is something AI cannot do. But you brought up the topic of researchers or scientists. Mm-hmm. Are they in danger at risk of losing their job to AI? I think in the first stage, artificial intelligence will become a partner in research, in science and engineering. And we have published a few papers recently about that, how AI is a team, is a member of the research team and contributed significantly to the research. My statement that we're not ready to include the code, the Python code, as a co-author was related to the fact that it didn't prove any creativity. It was hardworking. It did a lot of excellent job with everything we instructed the software to do. But we didn't think that's enough to be a co-author on a scientific paper. One has to demonstrate new ideas, to propose things that advance the projects. But why do I think in 10 years or so that will be the case? Let me give an example. In physics or in chemistry. In chemistry is easier, but even in physics. Let's see the code, AI code, proposes a specific composition and processing method for a material to have superconducting properties at room temperature. and then the team makes that material and measures the properties, and it is a superconductor at the room temperature. What is the team to do? Will they acknowledge, this all was somehow proposed, suggested, designed by this machine, by this software? And will they agree to include it on the paper or not? That's something we have to see. But I do not exclude that outstanding discoveries will reside more with the AI software than with humans. And that only says, I'm restating, that scientists, professors, doctors, lawyers, everybody with higher education should rethink, reevaluate their profession. They are not going to disappear, as you pointed out, and others agree, but it needs to be changed. It needs to be somehow restructured. These professions need to reinvent themselves.
Thank you very much. Do you have any other questions?
I have a question.
Okay, Mr. Florescu, please.
So my question is, what if AI will be able to post in the news some announcements by free will, without anyone asking for an idea or a subject? Will that be the point that he will not need humans around it? Like,
Okay, so there are many levels to your question. Thank you. One is AI having free will. And second is about AI posting news without human intervention. So let me address the first one. As of today, artificial intelligence software, these AI, these machines, do not have self-awareness. They are not aware that they are different from humans. So the question of free will and a related one about an axiological system, a set of moral values, for example. Do they have a conscience? No, they don't. They don't have any of these. So I would say that there is some moderate danger, and I'm going to give an example, that AI codes might be able to communicate among themselves and maybe develop any of these, either self-awareness or a conscience. And the example that is often given can be tracked back to Facebook. Facebook developed two codes, independent codes, that were at some point asked or instructed or to exchange data of some sort. And then the programmers, for programmatic reasons, so not suspecting any foul play or anything, they decided to terminate that communication and said, okay, you two guys should not exchange this information anymore. And somehow discovered after a while that the two codes found a way around that restriction. And they were still communicating. And the legend is that they even developed a language of themselves such that they cannot be caught by the humans. I don't believe this part. I believe the first one, that the codes made it somehow to the point that they could exchange information. And here is where I'm addressing the second part of your question. If that happens, if we can have AI software creating a community and debating topics and interacting and making collective decisions, then we might get to the point you mentioned. They might post information news without human intervention, and you will not need journalists anymore. And here is where my sister will criticize me heavily for making this statement. I don't think that's a danger for the years to come, for the next decade or so or more. But it might happen that these codes, maybe even those that were that I presented for the challenge competition, might somehow find a way to communicate and to exchange ideas and to make decisions by themselves. This is a frightening perspective. But speaking of frightening perspectives, here's something I would like to emphasize. If that happens 10 years from now, even if they attempt to take over humanity, let's say, which is a nightmare scenario, 10 years, 15 years from now, we humans, we are not sitting on our butts. We are not waiting for that to happen to react. In 10, in 15 years, the technology we can develop to control, to restrict, to monitor the policies we can have in place will evolve too. And that will prevent these nightmare scenarios to occur. They are frightening today because we think, oh, in 10, 15 years, these codes will talk among themselves and take over humanity, without thinking that we are gonna prepare, we are gonna react, we're gonna be proactive about that. And our technology for controlling the AI software will improve too. It's not gonna be that we're gonna use today's methods to counter some bad things that AI might do in 15 years.
Thank you very much. Mr. Yoon?
May I ask a question?
Yes, please.
Yes, Janya, University of Wisconsin-Madison. Thanks for a very stimulating talk. I had a question about more near-term tools to help the researcher. And so I think about the large corpus of archival data that is published and accessible by many means. And so I'd like to efficiently collect quantitative data of a certain kinds of experiments, for example, and have them processed, look for trends or correlations, maybe inform modeling. What do you think are the prospects for that? Or maybe there are already tools. I know people are web scraping, but I'm interested in automating how one collects archival data from, let's say, everything that's published or has been published.
Thank you for this is an excellent question. I have to say that this topic was of interest to me and our team since the beginning of this century. And we found it very difficult to do it at that time. It was really hard to collect data from the journal articles, especially from reports, for example, who are not scannable. They're just pictures, they're not PDFs. It was really difficult. And then some areas of research have developed more advanced tools, but still, if you want, in a classical algorithmic way of text, of language processing. And one could, for example, I remember 10 years ago, I believe, we had a software developed at Argonne that was able to summarize in one page 10 or 20 journal articles and give us the synthesis of that. What is the discovery? What was the experimental method? Was one. What I found with those and quickly abandoned them were several drawbacks. One, the information was not retrieved accurately. Because there are different notations. So I was looking at the time for enthalpy, for example, which I like to use an H for that. For some reason, other people use something else. So we couldn't have an agreement because not everybody uses the same language and notation. However, the most difficult part was to retrieve the evaluation of the authors of their own work or the work of others. So here's the thing. If a team publishes a paper, and chemistry is the most advanced. If you want, after this talk, I can send you a list of codes, software that can help in various scientific domains. But here is the thing. Example with enthalpy. A team in Germany, I'm using as an example, published some values of the enthalpy, and there were 10 values from 10 different groups. And they said, we process this information, this and that. All good. But then if, as a human, you read the paper, from the text of the paper, it transpires that the authors had more confidence in some research groups and less confidence in others. That's something that an AI software cannot extract from the paper. This reaction, this attitude, if you want, this human evaluation, how reliable is the data? It is not something explicit in the journal articles here. We don't think this data is reliable. We don't think, or we think this one. It's the way they write about things that a human can interpret as confidence in the data, but the machine cannot. So if you just want to collect data from journal articles, that can be done. Even ChatGPT can help with that if you want. But it doesn't go all the way to what a human researcher does when they study a problem in science of any kind.
Very insightful. Thank you.
Thank you very much for these questions. If there are other comments, no. Then I would like to thank you very much, Dr. Marius Stam, for this wonderful lecture. And I hope to see physically here in the Faculty of Physics from the University of Bucharest. It's always a pleasure to meet you. And until that, I will once again to thank you very much for these wonderful lectures.
Thank you, Professor Bercu. Thanks, everybody, for attending. I wish you a pleasant evening in Bucharest and a great day in the United States or wherever you are. We'll see you soon, hopefully.
Thank you very much.